So I just figured out how to use Lua, Roblox, whatever, inheritance. And since I couldn't really find any good tutorials online, and it is kind of confusing if you don't really know what you're doing, I decided I'll make a quick tutorial to show you how to do it. So if you don't know what inheritance is, it's a big part of object-oriented programming. And if you don't know what object-oriented programming is, you're going to need to know that for this video, obviously. So I'll leave some links to tutorials in the description below. But basically what inheritance is creating a class. Like, let's say you have a pet class, and then you have a subclass that inherits properties and functions from that class. So if you have a pet class, a subclass could be a dog. Pet class would have maybe, I don't know, name, owner, you know, very general stuff. While a dog class could have breed, maybe like a bark method. It's just to add more functionality to that base class. And it's very expandable. So if you wanted to add a hamster, you could also inherit from that pet class and have I don't know, like a spin on the wheel method, something a dog wouldn't have but a hamster does, but they still share properties because they inherit from an overall pet class. So in order to show that off, first I'm going to write a script, and then I'll put a module script in here. I'll just require script, wait for child, model script. This model script, just to make it easy, I'll do local parent is equal to empty table, parent dot index is equal to parent, and then I'll just make a constructor for the parent. Parent is very important for if you want your class to be inheritable. It needs to have a colon in its constructor instead of a dot. So let's do parent new. Put in the test value. Test value. Let's make it an integer. And then all we're going to do is return set metatable. And I'll just do test value to test value and set the metatable to parent. And let's say we'll have a printout method for parent. So let's print self. So I'll return parent just to make the module not error out, because we just want the module to run. We don't want to actually do anything inside the script. So let's do print parent new test value 14. Actually, we don't even have to do that. We can just do parent new 14 print out. Let it run. See, it'll print out itself, which is holding test value of 14. So then let's make the constructor for the child class, or the class that will inherit. It's also called subclass. You don't technically have to do this, but because you don't want to create any confusion, I would inherit, or I would override the constructor method. So I would name it the exact same thing as the parent. So function, actually we gotta make the table for the child class. Local child is equal to that. Or actually set metatable, it'll be a blank table, parent, child index is equal to parent. Okay, now we'll make the constructor for the child. So function child. Because I'm not planning to have anything inherit anything from the child, I can do a dot here. So let's do that. Maybe we'll put in test value 1, make it an integer, test value 2, integer, and local self. This is pretty standard. Set metatable. But this is where it deviates a little bit. Instead of doing a table like you would normally, like we even did up here, we're actually going to do parent new and then pass in test value, and then set this to child. So what this is going to do is it's going to basically create a parent object, but have it be a child object. The child is going to inherit all the properties of the parent. So this is how you inherit all the private instance variables or variables that parent uses. We'll just do self dot test value 2 is equal to test value 2 turn self. Now you can see here we have a new method. Let's do 1, 2. Okay, so now that we created a new child, we'll do colon. You can see although we don't have a printout method for the child, we only have the constructor, the printout method is still listed. That's because it inherits the parents method of printout. So if we do this, this function will run even though it's a different class. So if we do this, printout, test value 1, test value 2. So again, test value 1 is from the parent, test value 2 is from the child. But let's say you want a subclass to be a little different. You don't want it to print out everything in itself. You just want to print out one certain value. Well, you don't want to do like if, whatever, make it like 50 lines long. Instead, you can just override. So you do function, child, print out. It's important, make it the exact same name. And then we'll do print self.test value 2. So now, instead of the printout going to the parent's printout, it'll go to the child's printout. So we do this. So yeah, you can see here it'll print out 2, not the whole thing, because it'll call this method instead of that method. So that leads me to my next topic, which is the .__index. That is basically where we'll look for the functions. So before, which this caused sort of an error, I had to set to parent, which means I'm gonna check parent for the printout function. And since I didn't want that, I changed this to child. Now we can still do inheritance this way though. You see it still works if we don't have the method overwritten. So this is extremely useful just all around. So now I'm going to show you a real use case, and this is actually why I started researching how to do this. So let's say you have a ton of blocks, right? And you want all of them to have questions associated with them, but you want one of them to be a decal, you want one of them to be a screen GUI, but you don't want to write a whole bunch of code to set it up. I'll show you the easiest way to do this. So do local question is equal to empty question index is equal to question. So what will the question have? A question will have a answer. That'll be a string. And because I'm using blocks, I'll just put the folder that they're in. And I'll just return, set meta table, answer, folder, set this to question. And then I'll have a function question init. And what this will do is it'll loop over the folder, self.folder get children. So we'll loop over this folder with all these parts, and we'll do self load v. Now we don't have a load function in the question class. That's because we're not actually going to create any question objects directly. Instead, we'll have a child class. So let's call this a decal class or decal question. Set meta table empty into question. Decal question dot index decal question function decal question dot new. We'll set this answer string folder and like a decal ID. Set that to a string as well. Then we'll just make the quick constructor set meta table. This time we'll do question new, pass in the answer, pass in the folder, and then set this equal to decal question. And then here we'll do the more special private instance variables. So self dot, we can do decal ID is equal to decal ID, and we'll just return self. And then here we can do function decal question load. We'll just pass in part do local decal is equal to instance.new decal in part decal dot texture is equal to self dot decal ID. So actually, one second. change that so it actually calls the init function. So what's going to happen here is if I do decal question dot new, pass in, I don't know, like the answer isn't going to do anything, so let's do like test, pass in folder, workspace dot folder dot, yeah, it's folder, and then decal ID. Let me get a random one like that. So when this constructor is called, it's going to create a question, pass in the answer, it'll pass in the folder. So when the question is created, of course it'll set the answer to the answer, folder to folder, but it's going to call the init function. And because the decal class doesn't have an init function, it'll automatically go to question init. So then that will loop over all the children and then call the load function. And because the child class does actually have a load function, even if we had a, you know, function question load, it would still be overwritten. So you might even want to have this just in case you forget, but honestly that's just kind of bad practice. Just make sure that you have a load function for all the other subclasses. So if I'm sure something's gonna go wrong here, but run the, yeah, okay. So you can see, okay, ignore my avatar, but here you can see it set up all the parts with cookies. The reason why this errored is just because I forgot to return a class in the module script. It, as long as you're using it correctly, it shouldn't do that using module scripts correctly. And make sure generally have, like, if you have what I'm doing like an init function, I would put it at the very end, because I did run into an error where I had this after the init, so it didn't have it. Just make sure to put that back. So if I do return question, I guess, yeah, it's whatever. And then let's say we wanted another one with a like screen GUI. So let's, for this one, surface GUI. I meant surface GUI. Surface GUI, put in a text box. So I'll just put this in replicated storage. So just pretend like you had that prepared. And then let's say we had more questions. I'll just duplicate these, put them here. Call this folder 2. We go back to the module script, create function. Actually, not even function. We gotta do the class first. Local. I'll do GUI question. It's equal to set meta table. Boom. Question. GUI question index is equal to GUI question. Function GUI question dot new. Pass in the answer as a string. Pass in folder, of course, as a folder, and then we'll pass in I guess question, I should call it something different. I'm not great at naming. I'll do question label. Sure. We'll do local self is equal to set meta table, question, again, new, answer, folder, make this GUI question, self dot. Okay, this, what this is going to do is it's basically just going to give it the surface GUI template as like a constant variable. Self dot question label is equal to question label self init return self. And then we'll make the load GUI question load. Do pass in the part local surface GUI is equal to self dot surface GUI template clone surface GUI dot parent part surface UI dot, I think, what is it, text label dot text is equal to self dot question label, and then of course GUI question new, I'll just like test again, folder workspace dot folder 2 question label. This is a question. Okay, run this. I guarantee you something's gonna go wrong. Oh, did that actually not? Hey, look at that. So you can see how much better this is generally. Like there's so much use cases for this because we shortened what would be a lot of code by repeating this init function, repeating the answer, the folder. You'll save a lot of time and space doing it this way. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want another tutorial, I don't really make Roblox tutorials that often or at all. So if you want another one, just tell me. I'll figure it out. If there's anything that like I said that you like disagree with or like isn't factually correct, feel free to comment. It's totally possible I made a mistake, but it works. So